considering using the provisions of the Patriot Act to circumvent the Senate. You sent an email to Ms. Myers dated September 13th, talking about, quote, "We utilize the new statutory provisions." And she comes back and says, "I've not forgotten. I need to follow up on the info, but things have been crazy. We'll be back in touch." Then you're still pursuing this on an email on December 19th to Christopher Operson, talking about utilizing the new procedures, saying, "I think we should gum this to death, ask the senators to give him a chance, meet with him, give him some time in office, see how he performs. If they ultimately say no, never, and the longer we can forestall that, the better, then we can tell them we'll look for another candidate, ask them for recommendations, evaluate the recommendations, interview their candidates, and otherwise run out the clock." All of this should be done in, quote, "good faith," close quote, of course. Weren't you really suggesting utilizing the provisions of the Patriot Act, as you say, to run out the clock, which appears to mean the end of the president's term, and never have these replacement U.S. attorneys submitted to the Senate for confirmation? Isn't that the fair reading of that email?
Senator, I think that that's a fair reading. I think that I was suggesting that was a bad idea at the staff level that was not ever accepted by the Attorney General.
Let's proceed. See, it was a bad idea. It really wasn't good faith at all, was it, to run out the clock?
That wouldn't have been in good faith.
Okay. Now, what was happening at the level of White House counsel Harriet Myers? You have, after the memorandum, the email that you sent on September 13th, and she responds on September 17th, and now we're all the way to December 19th, and you're still communicating with the White House on this plan to circumvent the Senate. Now, is it credible that somebody in the White House, the level of White House counsel Myers, is not going along with this idea to circumvent the Senate when you're working on it in October, November, December, 3 months later? Doesn't sound like the kind of a matter that is a staffer's idea that has been rejected by the White House. You're still working on it. You're in touch all the time with these folks. How about that?
Senator, if I could draw your attention to the U.S. Attorney replacement plan that I drafted.
Well, you could, but after you answer my question, if you're working on it, for 3 months on avoiding the U.S. Senate, how can it be that you would spend 3 months working on something which the White House officials like White House counsel Myers is not going along with?
Senator, I don't think the principals ever considered abusing the U.S. the Attorney General's appointment authority in that way.
Abusing the U.S. using the appointment. Did you consider abusing it?
Senator, the U.S. Attorney replacement plan.
Did you consider abusing it?
I recommended to Harriet Myers.
When you weren't functioning not in good faith, you were abusing it, weren't you?
Senator, if I'd be permitted to give you an answer here. With regard to...
Okay, I'd like an answer, but the one I'd like is to my question.
As I testified earlier, that was a bad idea at the staff level that was rejected by the principals. And it was rejected by the principals with regard...
Were you abusing the principal? You used the word abuse. That's why I'm coming back to it.
In hindsight, I believe that it would be an abuse of the Attorney General's appointment authority.
Okay, let's go to White House counsel Myers, and a minute and 58 seconds left. the inference arises in unmistakable terms, it seems to me, Mr. Sampson, that when 3 months have elapsed and you're still on this use of the Patriot provision to circumvent the Senate, that at least in your mind you must think it's something that can be accomplished. Isn't that minimal?
I made that recommendation to Harriet Miers in September of 2006 on the theory that it would be more efficient. With 2 years left in the president's term.
Wait, I know all that. My question is, with your pursuing it for some 3 months, doesn't it raise the unmistakable inference that at least you thought the White House would adopt your recommendation? You're not going to maintain a recommendation over 3 months if you believe that the White House counsel or other equivalent authorities are opposed to it, would you?
I didn't maintain it over 3 months, Senator, as shown in the USA replacement plan that I drafted, which showed that with regard to the United States attorneys who would be asked to resign, that the plan, that the process would be to go to the regular process, to seek input from senators, to generate names that might be considered for nomination and confirmation.
Well, you might have a collateral plan, which would take me more than 20 seconds to explore, but staying on the documents, your emails, which I've already familiarized you with, let me repeat the question one more time. You are working on it for 3 months. You have proposed in your September memo utilizing the new statutory provision. Those are your words. Then you come back to December the 19th, more than 3 months later, and you are proposing in bad faith, circumventing Senate approval. Now, would you be doing something like that if, in your own mind, you thought the White House would not consider replacements using the Patriot Act provision?
With Senator, at the time that I drafted that email in December of 2006, December of last year, I did not think the White House would consider doing that with regard to 92 districts, which is why in the U.S. Attorney replacement plan I drafted, following the regular process.
How about one district? 92 districts, you're leaving one out. There are 93 districts.
And that's the Eastern District of Arkansas. And at that time...
would you think the White House would consider using the Patriot Act provision for that one district, Arkansas?
To the best of my recollection, in my discussions at the staff level with folks at the White House, I believe it was under consideration then. But it was not adopted by the principals. The Attorney General, after talking with Senator Pryor, was unwilling to consider that.